Hello everyone, I'm Rick. This is 90 to Zambo Talks, Bedtime Stories. Welcome to episode 5, Boraxo. So these stories, they're scenes from my book, 90 Degrees to Zamboanga, memoirs of a 20-year marijuana smuggling adventure. So in a nutshell, this story is really about what it took to make happen the clandestine importation of over 30 tons of marijuana between 1969 and 1981, when it was totally illegal. So, if you are enjoying these videos, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. So, to bring you up to speed, we're now in the spring of 1970, and Willie is totally immersed in the new lifestyle that he had envisioned just a few months ago. So he's living on an isolated ranch out in Cave Creek, Arizona, just north of Tempe, and it's the perfect place for our new smuggling adventures. And it's also the perfect place for him to relax and run around with his lady friends, which he's doing. So anyway, he's also he's got rid of the Barracuda and bought a Fiat 124 Spider. He got a new Triumph 650 Bonneville motorcycle, and he's also got himself a leather jacket with fringe, and he's a sight to behold. He's either a walking bust or something, but take your pick. Anyway, so I've got a couple of pictures of that. So this is his Fiat 124, and there he is in all his glory in his motorcycle. So anyway, so now the old smuggling route was a bust. So now we have to find a new route. So I fly down to Phoenix, and Willie picks me up at the airport on his Triumph. No helmets, no nothing. I mean, we're zooming in and out of traffic at breakneck speed. It's ridiculous. I'm scared shitless. Anyway, so the next day, we take his motorcycle and head for the border, and we're gonna reconnoiter a new route. So we go up to the water tank where we first checked out the routes, and that was we're looking to the west originally, but now we're looking to the east. We want to find a new route that nobody else knows. So looking to the east, it's much more desolate, and we find off in the distance on the Arizona side, we see a brand new subdivision that's just in various stages of construction. So we decide to go check that out. So we take his motorcycle and go check out this new subdivision, and we find it is in various stages. It seems to be abandoned. So we're scouting with our binoculars, looking over to the Mexican side, to the south, and we see a rock outcropping, which looks like a good place to start our new route. It's definitely a much longer route. It's about 3 or 4 miles, where before it was only maybe a mile. So anyway, we get back on his motorcycle and go across the border. We're whisked right through without even a question. We go check out the starting point for this new route, which is to the east of Nogales. So anyway, we check this out. Now, I'd like to show you in comparison what we're doing here. So, okay, this is the hospital that we first used, and you can see with the little black line that I drew, that's how we entered the hospital. The circle is where we parked, and we started our route down that trail. This is the route. Now, I hope you can see this. If you can see to this side over here, that's the old route. And you can see how short it was. And this over here is the new route. And you can see how long that was. So that's what we were looking at. So for this new route, we knew we had to keep it quiet. So we didn't tell anybody where it was. We didn't want to tell anybody where it was because it was, we didn't, from what had happened previously with the George incident and the cops, they knew the old route. So we were going to find a new route and keep it secret. So in order to pull this one off, we would need a third person. We knew that because we'd need a driver because it was going to take the two of us to walk in and out. We're going to have to be dropped off. So Willie had a friend, a schoolmate of his named Nape. We nicknamed him Nape because he had a very large neck. So anyway, Nape was going to drop us off on the Mexican side, and then he was going to drive around to the subdivision and pick us up on the American side. So he dropped us. He dropped us off on the. We got our load, and he dropped us off on the Mexican side. But it was a complete fiasco, that trek across the desert in the middle of the night. We got hopelessly lost. It was insane. But it took us about 4 or 5 hours, and we finally made it. Nape almost left. I mean, he was getting nervous. The sun was coming up. Anyway, we made it. And then we went back the next night and tried it again. This time, we were much better at it. And for future runs on this one, I went to the U.S. Geological Service and picked up topo maps. We had walkie-talkies, compasses. We shipped them with foot lockers, but we perfected that. We didn't have the fiasco at the airport anymore. So we lined the foot lockers with silicone seal and plastic bags, so there was no leakage anymore. Anyway, so we wanted to finish this year. It was getting towards the last of the year, and we wanted to finish this year with a flurry. So we were going to try something new. We were going to have a small army of people out there, everybody carrying packs, specially made backpacks, and so we were going to do the we nicknamed this run the Boraxo run after the 20 mule team Boraxo. And so I'd like to show you a couple pictures about that. So our Boraxo run was reminiscent of the 20 mule team Boraxo ad from the television show in the 50s, Death Valley days. So that was it. And this was the Boraxo ad, which we nicknamed that trip for. The plan called for 10 men. We were going to have 10 men, 25 pounds apiece, in specially constructed backpacks with 2 vans and 2 drivers. So we prepared for this, and one thing that kept recurring on every previous smuggling venture was the fact that I wore this dark blue T-shirt, which came to be the common thread of every smuggling trip I was ever on. It was the lucky shirt, and I wanted to show you a picture of me in the lucky shirt, because this proved to be something that was a recurrent. So this is me in the lucky shirt. That was the shirt I wore on every smuggling trip I ever did. So we assembled a team of students from both Arizona State and UOP, and we assembled 10 men to do the smuggling, and we had 2 drivers. So I want to read to you how this whole thing came down, because it got pretty crazy. So everybody was primed. The energy level was high. The 2 vans, loaded with the team of 12 student smugglers, left the Cave Creek house in the late afternoon and headed south for the border. Willie and I met with Jesse at the Fat Mexican's cousin's place at about 10 p.m. to complete the money transaction. We had negotiated this load for $25 per kilo. The entire cost was $6,250 for the load, plus another $750 for Jesse to have his compadre, Juanito, bring the load up in a truck from Culiacan. Juanito made all of 500 pesos, the equivalent of $25 for his work. The backpacks were then loaded into the van at Jesse's cousin's, while the other vehicle was at the edge of the eastern shanty town with the squad. The 250 kilos arrived at the jumping off point near the Mexican end of the border, and each of the 10 of us slipped on our 25 kilo packs and started off. It was close to midnight when Willie looked at the luminous dial on his compass, then at his wristwatch, and crawled under the barbed wire border fence located at a suspiciously hollowed out arroyo, probably man-made and previously used by illegal aliens sneaking into the U.S. There was barely enough room to maneuver as the top of Willie's dope-filled pack scraped the wire. "Okay," he whispered to the next man in line, "take off your pack, scoot under the fence, stay low, and keep quiet." It was no more than 5 minutes before all 10 men had crawled beneath the barbed wire fence and were slowly climbing up to the first ridge. Back in Stockton and at ASU in Tempe, the students' talk and bravado had been cheap while they sat around their frat houses smoking dope and drinking beer. Now the reality of the situation began to rest heavily upon their out-of-shape arms and shoulders as their uncomfortable packs, which they continually struggled to adjust, shifted with each unsteady step in the cool, dark desert night. A couple of pharmacy students had popped bennies, Benzedrine tablets, yet their bodies still flagged, and the only thing racing was adrenaline in their fearful minds. Each pound represented another year added to their potential prison sentences if they got caught at this moment. The aroma of paranoia was as pungent as the stink from their sweat-covered bodies. It was a piece of cake for Willie and me, as we were already in top shape from our previous runs. An hour into the trek, the line of straggling smugglers stretched for what seemed like half a mile, with some having to stop and rest, waiting for the slower guys, while those toward the rear occasionally had to be assisted by me. I was walking tail end Charlie, taking up the rear of the procession. Willie kept in contact with me by walkie-talkie. "How's it going back there?" Willie said into the handheld radio. There was a crackle of static, then my reply. "The column is bunched up, climbing the second ridge by the big boulder. Some of the guys are straggling. Too bad I don't have an electric cattle prod to move this along. You just keep going and we'll be along shortly." "If we do this again, maybe we should have these guys trained for a few weeks in advance with packs filled with 50 pounds of gravel," came Willie's voice out of my walkie-talkie. "Enough chatter. Stop talking and keep walking," I replied. Those in the column's middle and toward the end kept in sight of the others in single file by following the red filtered flashlight signals from the man immediately ahead. The broken column seemed to inch itself forward, like some handicapped centipede over the desolate barrancas. Willie and Phil and one of Willie's classmates were the first to arrive at the subdivision on the U.S. side of the border. It was 2:45 in the morning. The rest of us arrived about a half hour later, led by me with the others following behind, dog-tired. No one had gotten lost in the desert that night, but the trip had taken a toll. All but Willie and I were exhausted, beat up, and emotionally and physically drained. All of us piled the loaded backpacks into the van driven by Scooter, with Willie riding shotgun, and the rest of us climbed into Nape's van for the trip back to Cave Creek. We arrived back at Willie's ranch just as the sun peeked over the Superstition Mountains and the distant desert buttes. Sunshine, Willie's faithful golden retriever, was there as usual to greet us, her tail wagging excitedly back and forth. We arrived back in Cave Creek, and Phil and I took Phil's truck, which he had driven down, and drove the load back to Stockton. The load was sold within 10 days for about $75,000. Each of us made about $20,000, and it was the last run of the season. So I placed the lucky shirt in the bottom of my nightstand, awaiting the next trip. And that is the end of the Boraxo run. It was successful, and we look forward to doing it again. So thanks for watching. This is 90 to Zambo Talks. The website is 90tozambo.com. The book is 90 Degrees to Zamboanga, Memoirs of a 20-Year Marijuana Smuggling Adventure. It's available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle. So don't forget to like this if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Good night. Happy 420. We'll be back.